Hey guys, we're back, and this time we're going to be taking a look at the content booster pack for Mothership. This came out on a Kickstarter, and it was basically based on a bunch of fan feedback of extra content we wanted to see in the game, and the designer of the game, Peter Sanderson, went ahead and made us this pack. Now you can tell it's not packaged for retail, so I'm not sure if it's going to be available outside the Kickstarter. We'll have to see if it shows up on his website. It's the, I want to say third, but it's technically the fourth expansion to the game, because you have the Into the Vortex, you have the Call of the Void, and you have the brand new Beyond the Expanse. This one doesn't actually add new stuff, it just enhances things that are already exist in those other expansions and the base game itself. So we're going to get right in and take a look. So the first thing we have here is a little flyer for the booster pack, and it tells you that there's a bunch of things in here that basically add to what you already have. It explains all your components lists. The planets are out of the new expansion, Beyond the Expanse. And then the other things here, on the back there are the rules for the planets, just in case you don't have Beyond the Expanse. You can still use them in your games using those. Not too much though to go over there. The first thing we have here are the Distress Beacon cards. And there is a ton of these. And there was a ton in the original set as well. And I won't go through too many because these are kind of fun to pop up when you explore the various distress beacons. And then you read this top part here has a story, and at the bottom you have two options, and depending on the requirements you might need to meet a specific requirement in order to choose one of those options. But if you do, you pick the options, you get the rewards for what it is, and there's a ton of different ones, so every time you play you're going to come up with different ones. And there's one in here that's a little bit different than all the others, and it's kind of funny. It's just a nod for the fans. And then as well in the back here, I'm not sure how many there were. So in the back, there's a handful of blanks, so you can make your own, which is cool. I always found the best way to do these, if you want them to look really good, is to either print out on a sticker and stick those on there, or if you want to reuse them, we've put them in sleeves and just written on the sleeve with a marker, and then you can just toss the sleeve, put a new sleeve on. That way they're reusable. But love blanks. Blanks are cool. And tons more distress beacons to go in the set. So try to get these right because there's so many different types of cards. But I believe these are action cards. And there's a bunch of new ones in here that offer different little abilities throughout the course of the game. All kinds of new stuff in here. Not sure why the coloring's off on those ones. Didn't catch that one before, but yeah, they're kind of washed out compared to the others. So I mentioned that one to Peter too. And then again, we got a bunch of blanks. And as a bonus to the Kickstarter, we got offered a set of foil action cards. I don't know how well the Holo foil is going to show, but you should be familiar with foil cards. Pretty much everything that involves cards had some kind of foil at one point. And these actually came out better than I expected. My concern with foil cards is that they almost always warp, and you get this little bend in them, and it depends on the humidity. It's basically because the cardboard side of the card absorbs moisture, and depending on the humidity, if it's too high, they bend one way, and if it's too low, they bend the other way, because the foil side of the card isn't affected, while the cardboard side is. These, I gotta say, have to be the straightest, flattest looking foil cards I've ever seen. That said, I don't normally like to use foil cards. Generally, they're hard to read. These aren't too bad, so I might actually end up using them if it wasn't for the other problems with them. And we'll get to that in just a second, but it was a cool idea, and I give them credit for that. And for those of us who didn't want to use the foil cards, they included another set of basic normal cards. However, for some reason, the colors on these got completely like bleached out. And I think it was due to they had to change the color in order to make the foil. And I think all they did was take the foil off and keep the card the same. So that's kind of unfortunate. But then we get to the real disappointing thing about the foil cards here. If you did want to use them, like I said, I would almost use these because they're readable and they're flat, they're not marked. But when you put them alongside the rest of the cards, all the other cards in the set have black core for the card they're printed on, and for some reason the foils are done in white core. So if you're going to sleeve them, it probably won't be as noticeable. Should point out too that the backs are considerably different. These are way lighter colors. They don't have the shading. It's almost like they forgot the darker shading over the top too. So they will definitely stand out. If you're using sleeves with opaque backs, you might be able to get away with them, but very disappointed in those foil cards. It was a nice try, but I wasn't planning on using them anyway. I was planning on using the regular ones, which the backs do match, so they fit in with the rest of the cards. However, yeah, the fronts, just the artwork seems very washed out and bleached. And there is a bunch of these in the back too, which are kind of interesting. This one's almost like a black and white, because his red shirt is not red. Anyway, that honestly was the only real disappointment I had in the pack, and you have cards to get around it, so it's not that big of a deal. Next we have are the class cards, and these were first introduced in the Into the Vortex expansion. These give you unique job titles over here, and they have cute little artwork that goes with them. You have an ability down here that's active for the entire game based on your class. And then this one up here is the one that you can use once per game. And there's a bunch of new ones of these. I love the references on them. And then again, we have a bunch of blanks so that you can come up with your own. I love blanks. Blanks are a great idea. If you have room on your boards, when you're printing cards, they have to be printed in a certain amount of set that fits on a grid when they print them. And if you're ever making a game and you have room, print some extra blanks on there. Your players will love you for it. And then we have the artifact cards. And these are a set of new artifacts, and they're also numbered. I think some of these are out of order maybe, but I love the Defiant there. There's so many pop culture references in these. And those also come with new tokens, which we'll get to. And again, some blanks, so you can add in your own. I will say one of the things that we've done that streamlined the game a little bit is with the tokens with these, you're supposed to put the tokens underneath the planets, and then when you explore the planet, you flip it over, it has a number, and then you find the artifact that references that number, and that's what's there. We actually take all of our artifacts, shuffle them up, and put them in a pile next to the board. And then when a planet is explored, you draw the top card, that's what it is, and then get the number token for that card and attach it to the planet. It just seems easier for us. It's kind of a quicker way to do it, and it's less setup at the start of putting the little things under every planet that might not even be explored. So just a little tip there. Next we have our smaller cards. These are the achievement cards. And there's a whole new selection of these. I believe these came out in the Call of the Void expansion. I'm not positive on that. I know they were added later on. But again, a bunch of blanks. I do say this was a missed opportunity for Loot Crate instead of Mystery Box, but that's just me. When you get these at the bottom, you get different choices for rewards on them. And I'm pretty sure they're all different. There's a lot of interesting, unique ones out there. As with everything in the game, it's all modular, so you can pick and choose what you want to add. That's one of the great things about Mothership. And then finally we have these development cards. And these ones are what you use to develop your planets, moons, and so on. Bunch of new ones of these, although I will say my only complaint is it looks like there's a lot here, but you have Fortress 1, 3 copies, or 2 copies. You have Fortress 2, 2 copies. Fortress 3, 2 copies. Fortress 4, and then Outpost, and I think Junk keeps the last one, yeah. So there's not really as many there as it looks, but they're kind of cool. And these Fortress ones are kind of cool, except for the fact that you have to build them in order. So you have to have Fortress 1 in order to get Fortress 2, and then you have to get Fortress 2 in order to get Fortress 3. But they start building up to interesting little engines here at the bottom where you can produce a lot of stuff. So neat to have more options for there. Just wish there were more of them. But there are a bunch of blanks, as we said, with all the other decks. So that'll allow you to make some of your own, which is cool too. And we have a couple new tokens for neutron stars or black holes. Those were previously released, and I'm not sure which one they came in, but they allow you to have more of them out at the same time. Then we have our city planets. And I think these came out really cool. You don't even need to paint them. But if you do paint them, I bet they'd look pretty awesome. But you get 2 of those. And these came out in the brand new Beyond the Expanse expansion. There's my other one. And they're just a nifty new addition to the game. And like I said, they come with a rule sheet here for them in case you don't own that expansion. And then finally we have our artifact tokens. And these are the ones that are supposed to go under the base on the planet. And like I said, normally they want you to put them like that when you start. And when you explore a planet, you flip them over. So you can keep track of which planets are which have which artifacts. I think our way is easier though. Like I said, draw a card when you explore a planet, find the matching number, and then just go put it under the planet. Saves you having to set them up at the start of the game. But there's ones of those for all of the new numbers, as well as a bunch of blank ones to allow you to use custom ones. I will say that I understand they put these blank ones in here because there were blank artifacts in here. What I would have liked to have seen in this, though, in place of these, as much as I understand why these are there and they're useful, I would have liked to see the originals redone in these, in this new, this is the 2.0 version, because if you bought the upgrade pack from the original Mothership game to the 2.0, you did not get the new artifact tokens. So you can always use those blanks to do your original 12, I think it is. I think there's 12 there. There might not be. So there might not be enough there to do that, but just a thought. But there you go. That's a look at everything that comes in the content booster pack. And this was just a neat little idea that Peter had to add a little bit more, a couple more artifacts, some more action cards, a lot more distress beacons that didn't make it into the Call of the Void expansion. Some more development cards and achieve things they either weren't ready at the time or there was just too many and they had to cut some down when they released the various expansions. And it's just neat to have such a variety of things. And like everything in Mothership, it's all optional. You can add these to you can mix them in with the stuff you already have or not. You can mix and match and combine certain parts. I mentioned the classes too. It's always cool to have more classes. Those are probably the best addition. I think we use the classes and the artifacts in almost every game. Of course, you use the action cards in every game. But regardless of what other expansions and add-ons we're using, the different modules, sometimes we don't use achievements. Sometimes we don't use planetary development. Sometimes we don't use the beacon cards. but we almost always use the classes and the artifacts. So mix and match however you want. Having extra of the neutron stars and black holes is cool, especially if you're playing on bigger maps. Those allows you to do more variety in your setups and designs. The one thing I will admit that was lacking from this is a little flyer sheet like this with maybe some optional new map ideas. Now I know there's a database online. He has a website, and I'll put a link down in the description if I can find it, that goes to a tool that fans can use to design maps for the games, and it tells you, helps you lay out all these new components and things so that you can have preset maps. You just look at the picture, set it up, and go, instead of having to design your own and worry about balance and things like that. And nice to have some more of those pre-made up on a printed sheet that you can just stick in the rulebook where the other ones are. But it's easy enough to design your own, especially after you've played for a while. Although I think it's a great little pack. It adds a little bit of everything. It's unfortunate the disappointment with the foil cards and a couple other cards in there, which I will definitely bring to his attention. I already did the ones, but he may know about them, and there's nothing you can do at this point. It's already past production. But these were kind of funny because it was a mixed boat. I was disappointed in foil cards to begin with because I'm never a fan of foil cards. I've been playing Magic for years, since beta, and I hate foil cards because they always bend, they always curl, and they managed to solve that problem, at least so far with these. We'll see how they hold up over time with humidity exposure. But yeah, they solved one of the major issues with foil cards and then ruined it at the same time by having the white core on there instead of the black core like all the other cards. So, not sure what happened there. That was unintentional too. I have actually talked to the designer about it, and it was an unfortunate. I guess the samples they sent him were fine. He said okay, they went to production, and then the production got messed up. So, anyway, overall, I like it. It's got a lot of cool things that you can add to your game. I think the amount of distress beacons is huge. If you combine those with the original ones, it's going to be a very long time before you get through the entire deck and start getting duplicates or whatnot, unless you shuffle them in every time. If you play this like Gloomhaven style, where you use one and then put it back in the box and put it behind a divider or something so it doesn't get shuffled in the next time, it's going to be a long time before you get through that entire deck and go back and see ones are repeated. So I think that's awesome. And I'm not sure if there's any other Easter eggs in here. I know I found one funny beacon card in there. I almost reported it as something that was out of place and standing out like the cards. Thought it was a misprint at first until I looked at it closer, and then I was like, oh, okay. No, that's intentional. But I'm not sure if there's any more Easter eggs hidden in there like that, but I'm sure I will find them in the coming weeks. That is going to wrap it up for our look at the content booster pack for Mothership. Really nice game if you have Mothership, if you have the second edition, because all these card backs and everything are from the second edition. They've changed since the first. That's unfortunate, but they were changed for the better. The second edition is a much more clean game. There's a lot more to it. All the cards have different backs. They're easy to tell exactly what they are and things like that. So, but yeah, if you have second edition Mothership, this is definitely worth picking up to add to your game. Even if you don't have the expansions, you might have to look up the rules for the beacon cards and make your own tokens or whatever if you don't have the Call of the Void expansion, which is what introduced the beacons originally. But you can still play them if you have things to use, since you're not using, well, yeah, you could even use the blank tokens here to represent those if you needed to. There's ways around it to make what you need for that, so you can still play these even if you don't have the expansion. I suggest picking them up though, because all the expansions add a lot of interesting stuff to the game. But you can find the rules to use these other cards if you wanted to, but if you don't have the expansions. But I suggest picking them all up. They're not that expensive, and they're good additions to the game. And the best thing is that modular nature where you can pick and choose what you add. Like, we don't use 3/4 of the stuff when we play with new players because it's a lot to learn. But once somebody's played 3 or 4 games and they get the hang of it, we can keep throwing in more stuff like the advancement or the achievements and the development cards and things like that that make the game more complicated and a lot more interesting though. So just a little something I noticed while I was putting cards away and mixing them in. There is a slight difference on the backs of the cards. You can see there. So you could, in theory, be able to pick out which are the new and which are the old cards mixed in. Not a huge issue. If you sleeve, you probably wouldn't even see it. It unfortunately happened with all of them. This happens all the time with printing, so you're printing at different locations. These ones aren't as bad. I can still see the difference, but I know I mixed them in. The class ones, it doesn't really matter on, but they're pretty close. I didn't see a whole lot of difference in those. But yeah, I guess there is a little bit. On these, I noticed the bottom corners. Comes from being a Magic player for so long. You can tell stacked cards. But yeah, you can see in these bottom corners how this area is much lighter on some than the others. But it happens. We do different printings. There are different printers, different ink batches. So many things can vary to change color of cards. It's very hard to match backs from printing to printing. Yeah, those are even more noticeable than the others. But I don't think the artifacts were too bad though. Yeah, the artifacts actually look pretty good. So, just something to keep in mind if you have players who might take advantage of that kind of thing. Something to be aware of. This helps you guys decide if it's something worth picking up for you. Again, I'm not sure if this is going to be available after the Kickstarter campaign. He may have a few extra copies that go up on the Mothership website for sale, but judging from the box being a non-printed throwaway, it's not meant for retail, so I don't think it's going to stick around long. So if it's something you want, I would pick these up while they're available. As always, thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.